It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is an episode dedicated to the new moon in Taurus. So, May 19, depending on your location. And right now, I'm recording as Mercury is still retrograde. So, the previous time I tried to record this video, first, I forgot that Mercury is going to be direct, even though it was visible. Then I was interpreting the new moon as Mercury retrograde, which was funny. And the second thing, as I was talking about mundane and I was making a glitch, I was thinking that Israel is attacking right now, as usual, every once in a while. Then I was surprised that there are no missiles for a while on large cities as we usually see. And I'm like, oh, something is different here. And I later, as I finished, I got a call from a family member that told me that there are literally hundreds of missiles as I was speaking and saying that. So that's a classic Mercury retrograde moment. And I said, okay, I'm going to scratch that and try another take. So this is the second take. Now, here, this is the chart of the new moon in Taurus. We don't see much. What? Because it looks kind of good. There is this opposition from Mars to Pluto that's ongoing, but the moon is Venus ruled, and Venus is in Cancer, looking pretty, separating from a harmonic aspect with Saturn with a trine. And we know that Algol was, like, if we remember a bit of fixed stars, then we know that we have Algol at 25 degrees Taurus. So we're probably still in the range of Algol, depending on how tight of an orbit we like to have it. And then it looks like, yes, there's the T square with Jupiter, but Jupiter is applying to sextile Saturn, and Jupiter is with Rahu. So it kind of looks like quite good vibes. There's receptivity between the moon and Venus. Um, the opposition for Mars and Pluto is being mitigated by Neptune here from one side and by the new moon from the other side. Okay, so it kind of looks like, yes, there is this really intense aspect between Mars and Pluto that has been applying and has been ongoing with the T square to Jupiter, like the usual stuff that happened during these times, and they are not pretty. But it kind of looks like, hey, there's a lot going for us, especially if we look at charts that display it like this. But then, as we delve a bit deeper into things, we take a look at the asteroids. And as we do that, we're going to do that with the good, nice graphics and the angles, and so it looks a bit more messy. And there are certain angles that, upon closer inspection, give us a more intricate picture. And this is why I'm going to be very diplomatic about this. First of all, Pluto. And Pluto, if you are like me and you're during the Pluto square, I'm privileged to have Pluto trining, not trining, sextiling my ascendant, separating from sextile to my ascendant. So there's mitigation, then there's accessibility to work with Pluto. So many of us are reviewing or composting our view on Pluto and tending to it like the black hole that emits light. And because light is, and that's how gravity interrelates with light. Okay, so we have a new view of Pluto in Aquarius pertaining to gravity being a wave and not just a force, and gravity being a wave that, if it's an energy, then it transmits into light. And so gravity becomes light. And in this way, because light is both a wave and a particle, we have this quantum phenomena to do with light, and therefore we're very likely to have this quantum phenomena to do with gravity that allows light to travel both in space, gravity, and time. Okay, or gravity is also matter. You want to say particle. And this whole eclipse setting from a scientific point of view is very exciting. We get a more intuitive glimpse into gravitational waves, and as wave is energy, the transmutation of energy from wave to light, or from certain frequency or velocity, which is gravity. It's interrelated with the velocity of object and acceleration and so on and so forth. And um, light as something that travels, something that's unpredictable. And so we can get how gravity can be, first of all, with Pluto, gravity can be held guilty for people falling in love. But that's a side note, that we can see how gravity um, is basically less linear than we had predicted. Okay? And I don't know in depth the Einstein theory, grand theory of relativity, the grand one and the micro one. There was advancement in unification of these theories. So the whole Pluto squaring the nodes, squaring the eclipse, squaring the nodes in the other eclipse, squaring this new moon, the nodes in this new moon, from a scientific point of view, we have revelations that are going to have implications in our day to day life. If we cannot think about light in a linear fashion, we cannot think about gravity in a linear fashion, we cannot think about an object, an entire object, maybe even a planet, being in a particular point in a particular time. But we say, oh, it looks so coherent. And I tell you, when you watch a movie, and I'm gonna quote my filmmaking instructor, um, movies are the good thing we get from our basically what he called horrible sight. Why horrible sight? If you go back to film, then you have 24 frames, 16 to 24 frames per second. Okay, this flashing, 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 flashing. And if we were a fly, we would just see, we might get if we would an epileptic fly, we might get a seizure from watching that, from watching a movie. But because we're human and because our eyes receive data in intervals that are long enough to make what we see on screen coherent, so much so that we don't see movies as flashing light, but we see them literally as moving pictures that we get into, and of course move us emotionally and so on and so forth. Um, and so gravity and mass versus our perception or the sensitivity of our observational technologies um, is way more intricate than what we're being taught at school. Okay, so that applies to our day to day life, that applies to astral projection, that applies to people having the ability to move objects around. People say by the power of thought, by the power of this, by the power of that, or by the power of thought, Jehudi. And I think Tom Jacobs for the channeling of Thought Jehudi, Maryland, that are fantastic. And thanks, Cameron, for mentioning Jehudi again. So, kind of reminded me of that. So, That's an interesting point of view to begin with. This new lunation, from a scientific point of view, it starts some fated change in relation in the way we observe Pluto-related phenomena that is not just nukes and bombs and this, it's also compost, it's also gravity, it's also black holes, that emit light, the whole phenomena of a black hole that emits light, okay, the gravitational forces. What about the astrology of black holes? Okay, gravity as a mechanism for how astrology works, the quantum experience of light and gravity, and as a point of spirit and matter, and how they interact, and the non-dual view of spirit and matter as either a concrete study case or the, 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 the mother case from which there are concrete study cases or inherited are values of the spirit and matter non-duality is light and gravity. Okay? The fated new beginnings that we are having on this new moon also conjunct not just Algol, but another asteroid that deals with the meridians of the body, of the surroundings, and of the cosmos, and that is Sedna. Okay, so if you want, I myself need to read more about Sedna and the meridians. I have a study live with me that I did with Sedna, and there was this book that I found on Google that describes Sedna's relation to meridians and healing the meridians and healing with the cosmos. So yet again, we have another, we're turning to the cosmos for our meridian based healing. The Inuit myth for Sedna. Okay, the Inuit myth for Sedna is in Inuit culture, they they ate like creatures of the sea. And the story about Sedna was that she was betrayed by her father and thrown basically into the sea and became the queen of the underworld. We've had, and I think Astro Catherine that we've had the eclipse with Algol. The previous eclipse with Algol was in November 2021. So thanks for the reminder because I didn't it was. And she talked about Algol, which is very important. What we shall not forget is that Sedna was conjuncting Algol during COVID, and I think I learned that from Astro Victor, but I'm not sure. So he's the asteroids guy. But it can be somebody else that said that, and if that's you, then. So, but while we have this eclipse point triggering and the touch of Algol, which is the Medusa Gorgon myth, and the planets that eclipse themselves quite quite often and have this triple phase situation. Um, so there is the story of Algol that is the story or the way we tend to approach or invite or ask for Algol in more spiritual or magical work is protection from all the things related to Medusa. So sexual boundary violations, the story of Medusa, or not being believed or not being seen, but also being in the body, being present in the body. And being present in the body basically protects us from psychic attack. So if we unite the concepts of Pluto into Aquarius as scientific revelations about the nature of gravity, the nature of light, and that discourse, okay, applied to our day-to-day lives, and identification of the Algol wisdom is when do we tend to non-volitional, non-dual experiences, i.e. psychic attack, i.e. astral projection, can also be positive experiences, okay? Astral, but traveling the world astrally, or um, uh, having erotic tantric experiences without physical touch. Okay, there's both the world of discovery of these realms and the non-volitional experiences that they correlate with a decrease in somatic experience. If you're in, if it's trauma induced, that there can be what we call dissociation from the body, and then you have non-dual experiences. Okay? And so you understand that the way to not to alleviate non-volitional, non-dual experiences, or not, or non-desired non-dual experiences, is alleviating, ushering our way to the body. How? Seeing, believing, validating those type of experiences that got people to be to dissociate to begin with. Okay, so this is the story of Valgo meeting Pluto. So now we know it's energy. Okay, energy is not just what we see in engineering. It is both that and the implication when we unite the psychological qualities of Pluto, we understand, okay, there's something happens to the person, and so the scientific ontological unit of a human being transforms. And the person is having an experience, a psychological experience of non-duality. It is not just psychological, it is also scientific. They're not imagining. Period. Okay? That also pertains to Neptune and so on and so forth. All of that, while the moon is going over this algol that is trining Pluto, okay, and provides for a lot of awareness and alleviation of crisis, basically. Here, returning to the body, anchoring ourselves in the body, and thereby protecting, being protected by the merit of simply being, then we can open ourselves to, okay, when we are really, really going into the body, then we can also start seeing things, start receiving things, because we are centered, and we can receive from a place that is more volitional, that allows us to be, or to say what Tom Jacobs refers to as the yes, no, and maybe when it's accurate. All of that is now conjuncting Sedna. And Sedna deals with the type of cosmic activity and aligning our healing to cosmic activity. Basically, when we work with talismans, we are working with the wisdom of Sedna, of the meridians. Why do I ask Al Gold to um, um, uh, please honor and help me protect myself from psychic attack, or from whatever witchcraft or whatnot, or protect myself, or in public transportation, being protect my boundaries, and so on and so forth. How does it work? So Pluto gives us this gravity. Then there is the myth and the understanding that if you went through a certain situation, then being present in the body is going to alleviate a lot of the stressors in your life, okay? And allow the divine rage. And this is, I think Astro Catherine, she was quoting she was quoting, I don't remember who, about the divine rage of Algol, that her rage is divine, which is an excellent and very important point. So we allow ourselves to express this divine rage and assert our boundaries and also inhabit ourselves in compassion with repent that we were not doing it earlier. Okay? So the conjunction to Sedna kind of reminds us that every planet is on the meridian point of the cosmos, which we are a part of, and therefore can assist tending to those meridians. So Sedna is trining Pluto. And now we can compost our view of Sedna. Hey, Sedna is not just about betrayal. Sedna is also about the sense of discovery of new forms of webbing our communication in a way that we receive a lot of help from the universe that we weren't even, that is not even dependent on, for example, our welfare system, our psychologist, our psychotherapist, our family. So it's like when we don't have the ability to turn to these forces, we have the birds and we have the planets and we have the grass and we have the trees and we have the animals and we have the sea and we have speaking with buildings, speaking with doors, speaking with our clothes, and all of these also provide assistance to align ourselves with nature. All the while, we also have a voice here. So it's important to remember that as we navigate through times where the the entities that could be there for us may not be able to be there for us, still we are getting help from the entire cosmos, simply because we are a part of it, and every part of cosmos is being embedded in the cosmos. Okay? It also gives us this bird eye view, this cosmic bird eye view, okay, of situations and circumstances, okay, and the processes that are happening in our world. Yeah, it kind of wakes us up to that and to at least tend to it. Intention, intending to something goes a very long way with the outer planets, with every planet, but with the outer planets. Intention is key. And what's important to remember is all these things as we come to touch on another lunation that magnifies a grand square between Pluto, Mars, the nodes, Jupiter, Haumea, as well as lot of fortune for this particular time. And a grand square is a web of dissonances, is a web of, it's a subset of a series of Zen sentences or declarations. So we are asked to hold multiple Zen-like states at once. Alchemy is a big word when it comes to that. Intention, asking, prayer. Those are all very useful. And Jupiter has to do with our belief system, also with children, with semen, with the seed, the instinct to do good. Okay, Ernst Wilhelm talks about Jupiter as the instinct to do good. Okay, and my addition to that, if Jupiter rules the seed or rules semen, then if I plant seeds of cucumber, I expect to, if everything goes right, I will not grow strawberries. Okay, it's gonna be cucumbers. And so if Jupiter is the seed, so it's the instinct to do good. Okay, the semen, literally the semen, is carrying life. And so what do we believe? And I want to quote actually um, I wonder if I should do that or if we should do the collaboration that we've been talking about like a year ago. Um, but if you think about how do we view semen? Okay, how do we view semen? And how the semen comes out of the world through a pipe. So this little pipe, this is called penis, is both Mars, but the pipe is also Pluto, because Pluto rules excretion. And so we have a unification of excretion or something we compost and a penis, something we penetrate with, and transformation and seed and the instinct to do good. Why, isn't that lovely? But all we've been taught about was that equating penis with weapon, and Mars rules weapons and it rules penises. Um, to protect our country, we do acts that sometimes are not ethical. That can create a dissonance between the semen, the instinct to do good, and the pipe through which it comes, that is both Pluto and Mars. And so that can create experiences, so challenges to fertility. We know sexual boundary violation, of course, but also erectile dysfunction, CPTSD. If your faith and your actions have dissonance, then it's very difficult. You want to do good, but you're doing something that is sometimes to kill a person. And sometimes this is the right thing to do. Then it's and sometimes what seems like the right things to do, if you think about, talk about Pluto, the A bombs. So at the time, like the right thing to do. But then the atomic veterans were silenced for 50 years, and then we get Chiron in Aries. And so Chiron, we have a new moon in Taurus, and upon closer inspection, Chiron is being brewed into this coffee, basically, by merit of the T-square of Pluto that trines this nation, but squares Jupiter and opposes this Mars that rules both Ketu with Scorpio and Chiron in Aries. War or militant security strategy is changing. And this is another thing that I discovered while I was recording the previous video. Mars right now is on the point that when Pluto was, that is between Cancer and Leo, we had the Second World War. Okay, 1939. This broke up the Second World War, which will lead to the twin bombs. I don't know why, but the twin bombs were developed by scientists that had both Pluto in Cancer, but also Pluto in Gemini. Developed the A bomb, and that grew into the twin bombs. So even though it was, I believe, in August, I don't remember when was it dropped. I know it was dropped around an eclipse, but Dan waits for that. Dan waits knows these things. So anyway, when Mars was where Pluto is, we had not the first but the Second World War. And Mars in 29 degree, which is nation, is still protecting the motherland, protecting also the people, but is in conflict with Pluto, that is in the sign of the power of the masses, and is about to enter another trust relations where it is loyal to the leaders, okay, to the sun, is in the sign of the sun, and it's sextile in the sun from here. When it's sextile in the sun from Cancer, then we have a receptivity between the sun, yes, the sun and the moon. We have a new moon merging, and then Mars is there with the moon. So the army protects the people, and then the leaders have to align. Okay, it's a new moon. There's the and the people meet the leaders. Okay, and they have a conversation. It's like what is a new moon? It's like a Kazimi of the moon. So the moon is getting a solar update. All the while, Pluto now is in Aquarius. And Aquarius is the sign of the masses. The last time it was there, what did we have? We have the French Revolution, the American Revolution, or the American Independence War. So we had a lot, and when we had Pluto in between Cancer and Leo, we had a Second World War breaking out. Now, there are many facets to this. One of the facets is Mars is the military. Mars is protecting. The challenges that we now face are of Pluto and Aquarius. Hacking into systems that we couldn't hack before. So we, the people, can hack into systems that our governments operate. So there's the hacking, okay, the technology. This is one challenge. Marginalized societies. Okay, and the decentralization of Aquarius allows people access to the ability to stand for themselves and to make an impact where they didn't have this possibility before. So we had it with the Arab Spring, we had it with the Me Too, that saved a lot of lives, basically. Okay, and it also spared a lot of lives of the leaders. Only in a democracy can a prime minister or a president finish his credentials, finish his rulership, and retire into his own private sector work and thrive there. This happens only in a democratic system. The only way out of rulership in a non-democratic system, you're either assassinated or you die natural death and you have a successor, which is what happened now. And now when people talk about astrologers, talk about, now watch Grassie's fascinating video about Charles' coronation, King Charles' coronation, and how they waited for so long and then they did it on an eclipse with the moon in sidereal Scorpio, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's tropical Scorpio. Yes, was the eclipse, right? So they waited so long and then they gave it a waning moon eclipsed with Jupiter on the midheaven that symbolizes the rulership. So you watch across this video if you're interested in that. It's a great video. And like we don't know, but astrologers are also ruled by Uranus, which also is associated with Aquarius. And is now in Taurus, a sign ruled by Venus that is with Rahu. the eclipse. So, granting the continuation of the Venusian bloodline. Okay, perhaps it's Camilla. Can't operate, so perhaps it's granting more power to Camilla. Or not. I don't know. Um, and so the only way where you can end end your job as a representative represent, representative of the people in the parliament, the whatnot, back to life and have a thriving private sector career if you want it, retire if you want it, is in a democratic regime. But the legitimacy, Weber, the monopoly over power, is only legitimized when we don't have to exercise this power. Okay? So the people obey volitionally because their needs are met. And so the regime has legitimacy. Okay? All the thinkers of the social contract are getting a roll call. So you can take out your Hobbes, take out your John Locke, take out your Rousseau, take out those thinkers, political thinkers. If you did not study political theory, you studied political science, but you only do voting patterns, then it's no shame, it's not your fault. I had a similar experience in linguistics. We studied Chomsky. I couldn't get into student exchange because they were studying semantics in a completely different way. So it happens, it's okay. Okay, we studied Chomsky, and then it's only when I was dating a physicist that he talked about Chomsky. It was like, oh, well, Noam Chomsky wanted basically to unify the philosophy on something like quasi Kantian morality, is trying to find unification through the logos, and is trying to prove that there is a structure that can allow that, and that is universal grammar. Thank you very much. I just spent 3 years about universal grammar and not even knowing that. So it's okay. It's not your fault if you didn't learn that. But this would be a good time to get into these thinkers and to get into these views, um, and and everything to do with the social contract, because now Pluto is emphasizing on we are reiterating social contract and there's representation that we require. Now, the blind spot for Pluto 300 years ago was, and this I think, so Heather Iland, which made a fantastic point that yes, there is power to the people, and people were liberated in the French Revolution and the American Revolution. That being said, it's not like everybody got their freedom. We still had slavery. We still had concentration camps for Japanese people and other people in the United States. Not just in Germany. We still had atomic veterans that couldn't speak for 50 years about what happened. Okay? Those things still occurred. We still have the twin bombs that are for all six purposes are genocide. We're now being held accountable for genocide, and the United States is still in the P5 of the Security Council. It's the countries that can do a veto. This is Russia, the United States, China, okay, um, France and Britain. Those are the P5. In 2023, you go to the Security Council, those are the P5. Those are the countries that can veto a Security Council decision. What is the Security Council in the UN? That's the only committee that can give the order to send troops to invade a country. China, Russia, France, Britain, US. The countries that won the Second World War. Okay, so and that is another aspect. Okay? Not all people got that liberation, but if you go 300 years, it's like there was an American Revolution, there was capitalism, and capitalism in essence is not corporate jobs. is not monopoly. It's the opposite. Like we need to criticize when we criticize capitalism. We need to criticize it for what it is, or we need to criticize the implication, or the praxis. Okay, what people made of that. It's not necessarily what it was. And what it was, it says like if I find land and I grow crops on this land and I nourish this land, I give myself a gun, and anybody that tries to get me out of there, boom, shot dead. That's the basis of liberty to grow something and the liberty from taxation. Now you can adapt that to non agricultural society, and what you get, eviction notices are illegal according to capitalism. Because if you grow, you stay in a certain place, you grow, you tend to it, you clean it to the best of your ability. Okay? And then the critique is ableism. Okay? What if you can't do that? You still deserve to be fed, you still deserve a land, you still deserve a place to be, you still deserve assistance. How do you fund for that? Well, some sort of system, whether it's dividends like 10% off, or taxation, but this taxation is supposed to return to the people. It cannot be the case that just because you're living on a land or you're building a house, you have to pay a tax for the fact that you're alive. And from the taxation on the property tax, okay, and there is no economy that can go like income taxes is one thing. There is no way to have sustaining economy without having some sort of charity that we can rely on. That is like insurance. Okay, we give this 10%. If God forbid something happens to me, then I get well fed. If something happens to another person, they get well fed, and this is percentage from our income. Then okay, well maybe we can do spacecraft. But that's how it works. Okay, income taxes is one thing. The fact that you pay for the right to live on the land or to have a house is a condition that when we agree to that, this is how we get taxed for oxygen. And now we're reiterating that. Capitalism is not about monopoly, it's about decentralization. That being said, the implementation of that included slavery by one of the people that were advocating for releasing slaves. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln. So, if we go back 300 years ago, we understand that what happened in the Second World War? What happened there? It was not just the Holocaust. It was ableism to the core. Okay? Whoever could not work to death was sent to death. And think about the implication it has on the labor market. Labor, okay? A labor of love, labor as birthing, labor as creative project, labor as parties, political parties that are for unions or whatnot of labor people, labor as working. And how all of these are related. How can you have good, volitional, juicy sex in a society where people expect you to get up and work when you just escape a violent spouse? Man or a woman, doesn't matter. Okay, men are suffering from this, and this affects semen just as it affects people. And even if people say, okay, I want my children are not physical. Okay, it's okay. It still affects your fertility, your ability to create. So, Mars, when it contacts Pluto, it contacts Pluto from the point where Pluto was, the oppositional point of Pluto. So, what did we have then? We have nukes, new technology. But what did Iran say now to Israel? And it's very correct and it's very true. We don't need a bomb to attack Israel. They said to destroy Israel, but generally, okay, geographically, if even if they sent the exploded, let's say the nuclear base in Israel, okay, around Israel or around where it's located, people would evaporate, and then there is another range that includes Iran, and that's the range that the atomic veterans were silenced about for 50 years because those are the gruesome sites. Okay? Uranium enriched soil still grows crop, we just can't eat them. It's not healthy for us to eat uranium enriched crops. But they do grow. Life grows. The planet, it will be okay. It will grow. It will just grow differently. It's up to us if we grow the things that are nourishing for us. And we're thrown into this situation where we're still thinking World War II when we are in a repetition. Pluto is in the opposite direction. So Mars is still thinking about the strategic occurrences or concurrences that were, a couple of, that were a century ago, basically. All the while, or less than a century ago, all the while we are in 2023, and we are reiterating the Pluto of the masses. So, with Pluto that was in Cancer and that was in Leo, we had a compost of, unfortunately, the peoples, okay? But this compost created, from the League of Nations, the United Nations. The League of Nations was composted into the United Nations. Okay, the Spring of Nations, and so on and so forth. Even more blooming birthing of peoples. From the Leo perspective, of course, leaders were composted relations, but a lot of people lost their what China calls the mandate of the heaven. And this is so important when Pluto is now in Aquarius. Because right now with Pluto in Aquarius, the people are getting the mandate of the heaven. Okay, with Pluto in Leo, the leaders were getting the mandate of the heaven. And I read a quote by an American veteran that said how war serves the few at the expense of the masses. And he was referring to the Second World War. Okay, so he's activist in this field. He was veteran. He knew what he was talking about, right? From an insider. And we have this opposition from the operation from mandate of the heaven is given to leaders, to rulers, to kings, to solar Regulian figures. And mandate of the heaven is given to, and here it is more the idea or the land, the motherland, and the peoples. And this is not the people of Aquarius. The people in Cancer are more cohesive. Here, Jupiter exalts in Cancer. Jupiter, I thank Aspen Kapok for this word, cohesion. It's time to bring back the word cohesion. Yes, Jupiter's cohesion is exalting in Cancer. So the Cancer archetype is the archetype of cohesion of the peoples. You are a patriot. Yeah. The archetype of Aquarius is about humanity, society. Humanity is more Piscean world, but society at large. But also the unification of societies is we are approaching Pisces. Okay, so we are at the citizens of the world. Okay, I'm half Israeli, half Dutch. The Dutch side is citizen of the world. The Israeli is the promised land. So I say, what is the promised land? Is the land that delivers on the promise. This is the promised land. So I am a citizen of the world. This is what it should be ideally. Should not have problem. Um, yeah, and you think about the two passports. Where can I go to with Israeli passport versus where can I go to with the Dutch passport? Okay. So we talked about the strategic challenge. That we talked about a certain militant or certain Martian forces, certain protective forces that are still operating with the scripture of the World War, while we are reiterating a complete revolution. That it's not that the Mars does not think about cognitively. There's a difference between to know that this is the challenge and to operate from this point of view. Okay? So, so what we need to remember when we talk about Pluto and Aquarius, the mandate of the heaven is given to the people. It is the people that will sustain or not sustain the mandate of the heaven. So if we go from 300 years ago, the French Revolution, into the two world wars, or the Second World War, we basically see, okay, to what extent did the people sustain the mandate of the heaven? And how is that tested? How do we tend to marginalized societies? What happened during the Second World War? It's not just the Holocaust, okay? Also in the side of the United States. Japanese people were composted into concentration camps. In the land of the free. And now we are at a returning point where now again the freedom is granted to the people. So what I have been reiterating over and over and over and over and over again, especially to the nations that are related, France is in a better situation. France is used to demonstrate over everything, go to the street, they're doing a good job. The United States still has this concept, this ableistic concept, that a lot of the culture, not everybody, there are great people in the United States, there are fascinating people, and there are compassionate people, and there are deeply understanding people. But there is also still the prevalence of the notion that if a person finds themselves evacuated, it's because they did not make good choices in life. While, in fact, the essence of the Constitution is that they should pull up, like the good choice would be to pull up a gun and be able to shoot and be able to be legally protected so that they can protect their residents, their current residents, because it doesn't matter who they pay rent to. If they nourish the place, if they tend to the place, then by the essence of the United States, as the Declaration of Independence, they are eligible to the land or the building or the construction that they live on. Think about that versus house flippers that literally crack down the market together with the banks. So, and ruined a lot of good real estate that existed. I know some people that had real estate in the United States. They had a couple of estates that were running good. And then times were changed and they got flipped out and they had to sell everything because they started, the people changed and people started. So it was problematic to the estate owner, but it was very problematic as well to the person who's supposed to rent the estate, to the tenant. And who is getting blamed? The tenants. Well, darling, if who are the homeless people? These people who said no to violence. So I'm not staying in this domestic violence. I'm not staying in this job that is taking a toll on me. I'm not staying. I'm acting on my freedom. Here they made the best possible choices in life. But what did you do for Uncle Sam that served in the army and maybe was silenced for 50 years? And what toll did this take on their psychology, on their this, on their that? So because the United States exists for 300 years, then that's what we judge. Um, the mandate of the heaven to the people is being granted. That being said, it is the people that are also being unfortunately composted in this process, um, because eventually we need to stand, like for us to have power as the people, we need to do what we ask the king to do. What do we ask the king to do? And let's go to Morocco in the Arab Spring. The king of Morocco in the Arab Spring, he survived the Arab Spring. How did he do that? People demonstrated. He landed an ear and he made changes. He made restoration. And so the people said, well, the king is doing the job great. We speak up. He listens. He makes changes. Good. We keep the king. We keep the king then. When we have stability that we wouldn't have otherwise in a democratic regime. Well, that's lovely. Okay. And so the king of Morocco survived the Arab Spring. Well, everybody was falling apart. Why? Because he was smart. He was not stupid. He said, the people want a change. I will give them a change. This is what I'm supposed to do. I came here to do a divine right to be a king so that I can serve my people. They need a change. Okay, let's do it. Let's do reformation. Okay, I've not been attuning. And now, when we have decentralized form of regime, whether democracy or whatnot, also when you think about non-democracy, okay, I'm talking structure, not countries. Uh, the structure of the political party at rule, okay, has been decentralized. Good, great. This is also a form of decentralization. Yeah, I'm not saying only democracy and that. We are varied people. There are varied cases, but the question is, how is marginalized society treated? Who are the people at the margins of society? How are they being tended to? Because the mandate is given both to the leaders and to the kings and to the people if and only if they sustain the mandate of the heaven. And they grant the human rights for a society. If a king does it better, then there would be tendency towards a king. If the people do it better, then there will be tendency towards the people. Okay? So, that's literally what it is. And Pluto in Aquarius retrograde right now is showing us the various ways in which we, the people, need to sustain the mandates that we have already been given. As Pluto ingressed into Aquarius, we were given, but the cosmos has given us the mandate of the heaven. Now we have the power. We, the people, have the power now. But then Pluto retrogrades, and you see a person is being choked to death to the sound of cheering people in the train. And that happens in the United States. Who was that person? A homeless person. What did he try to do? Get himself arrested. But not only that, he tried to get himself arrested to get food, but he also was doing activism and saying, talking about the situation for homeless people. Okay, who who killed him? A veteran, okay, 24-year-old veteran. What happens in this case? Well, a veteran, they can have PTSD, they can have many things, but they were being active about it. And then, if you, let's say you stop a person, you put him on a chokehold or whatnot. Okay, this is where the people, the people, are already given power. We have power. Pluto, 0 degrees Aquarius, we have the power. If we don't have to fight for it 20 years, we just have to sustain the power that we already have. That's what's important to understand. This is what, if you have one takeaway from this video, this is the takeaway. We're not fighting for the power, we're not finding our power. Pluto in 0 degrees Aquarius, January 1, 2023, we have the power. Okay, what were these people doing? Cheering the death of a person. So the veteran who was killing this person, he could have acted out. It's like, okay, I want to save the day. And then people cheering, so he keeps on doing that. But what happened if the entire people would have said, wait, hold on a second. Thank you for restraining this person. Now, let's see what we do to help this person. What's going on? Are you homeless? Are you this? Are you that? What do you need? How can we help you? Okay. That's the power that we're given. Now we, the people, can say, what do you need? Do you need food? Do you need shelter? What do you need? How can we be of help? Forget the welfare, forget the state, forget the regime. How can we, the people, help you in this situation right now? What can each and one of us do? To the best of our abilities. Okay, if we can, maybe somebody is safe to host. So if I'm a woman alone, I would not feel safe to host a person in my apartment, but maybe somebody can help. Maybe we can lend money. Maybe we can find food together. We, the people. It's like, hey, okay, you were aggressive to us. Now, okay, we restrained you. Now let's see what can we, the people, do for you. We have already been given the power to do that. But what were the people doing? They were cheering up. And so the person that was executing, and mind you, there's a veteran, and in this situation, you just act, you see the people cheering up, so you keep on doing that, and then the homeless person dies. We, the people, did that. And it's like a Dostoevsky scene. But this is something that's so important to reiterate, because there's this notion with Pluto in Aquarius that we are heading to 20 years of humanity taking its power from the regime. It's going to be a long process of decentralization, all the while the other way around. And Pluto is going to retrograde, and then we are going to a situation where we, the people, can help, can sustain, can do something. And that's something where each and one of us is going to have to, find out, what can I do? What can I do? It's not what can I do for my country, not what my country can do for me. It's like, what can I do for my people? And also, what can the people do for me? Because if I help myself, if I heal myself, then I'm a civil human being to live with. Okay, have autonomy. So this grand square is emphasizing that we already have the power. Now it's time to exercise it. And when we do exercise it, this Mars here is outdated. And so some of us might experience the feeling that we've been given power prematurely, and the lunation, the sun, okay, the new moon, the sun, is of help. The nation is getting an update by the rulers, and the rulers come to mitigate the situation. Because if you go back to the social contract, the Hobbesian version of it is that life before we gave a power to a third entity, that is the regime or the king or whatnot, um, there were short life, there were miserable life, there were hard life, because people would fight. Let's say if two people fight, nobody to bridge this, nobody to bridge this. Now what do we do? Okay, it's difficult. And so we granted some power to some authority that can judge and say and mitigate this conflict. That's the legitimacy and the mandate of the heaven to the leader. And then, of course, there are problems with who is the judge and so on and so forth. Um, but that the more we sustain our um, power as humanity to tend to the individual issues in society effectively, the less reliant we are naturally on our leaders. And what can our leaders do? They take a step back because they don't need to control us anymore. It's like, okay, now, like, the children are the nation, the people, they're doing good. We can take a step back. The king, why is the king so luxurious? Why is the king so enjoying of life? Because they can do so. Other than to control you, they have a life to live. They can go sunbathing, they can go swimming, they can prepare food with gold, they can wear funny hats, they can do many things. They don't have to be there ruling you all the time. The mandate of the heaven that they are getting is if the people need help, they need to interfere, they need to protect the country, they need to this, they need to that. Now, when this becomes parasitic life, when the people don't tend to their own conflict so well. And who are to blame is the people who have the power within the people. Okay? It's not the homeless person that is in a situation where he can't anymore. It's the people around him that need to sustain this, that need to restrain, but also address, help, assist. Do what the government didn't do. You want to replace the government? Okay, let's see you doing what the government is doing right now. Let's see how you are operating as the people in favor of the people. Because otherwise, those marginalized society, they will apply to whichever authority is going to help them. And you can be very certain it's highly unlikely that that authority is going to be pro those people or pro we the people. Okay, this square is this grand square is emphasizing that Mars is ruling Keto. Keto is in Scorpio. And what is the Mars of Scorpio? Mars of Scorpio is hidden tactics. It's also getting into the root or to the essence of the truth and acting from that essence. But the paradox with Scorpio is kind of like they think all that deeply, but when they try to speak to the other person, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's not that they're gaslighting the Scorpio, is that they're not aware of what the Scorpio is being aware of. And then the Scorpio is getting to the essence of the issue and speaking up or acting assertively, and the other person is feel like, what the heck did that come from? And triggered at the same time, because there's an essence of truth to that, but it catches you off guard. And so for the scorpionic being, it is very defensive, and unfortunately the defense tactics are very they're like the sting of the Scorpio. It's like when you do attack, you attack to kill. And while in many cases you don't really need to kill anybody. Okay, so we are purging the type of tactics of the type of colonels and militants that say, well, if you are fighting fairly, you've already lost the war. Okay? That was true to certain times. But now we're purging that in favor of where is Rahu? Is ruled by Venus? Is with Jupiter? Where is Venus? Was she in Cancer? Separating from a trine to Saturn. A degree away from Sirius. And we have all kinds of myths of Sirius. The lunar mention of Sirius is not favorable, but Sirius itself, and I actually take my wisdom from Gigi Young when she was channeling the planets and so on and so forth. When she talked about Sirius, she talked about this diversity. And I also have an Israeli channeler that reiterated that, Valeria Weisberg. Okay? She spoke about it with me because I have moon there. And so she didn't know my moon. She just see, oh, I see her from Sirius. And I'm like, okay, that resonates. I have the moon there. And it's a planet of great diversity. So Venus embraces diversity. And she's separating from Saturn in Pisces. So a pack of people that everybody has their own mind and everybody is like a painting or a version on the canon of humanity or whatnot. Very hippie Venus. Okay? So Rahu is very hippie. It's like, let's all love each other and accept diversity and so on and so forth. While Mars is ruling both Aries with Chiron, and the Rahu is about to go into Aries, which will also be with Aries again. We had a solar eclipse on Aries, the planet with the E. And I'm planning an episode about Aries with an interview, but I'll save the goodies for future time. And that means that we are purging the type of scorpionic strategy, all the while the militant forces are going to operate more in favor of the rulers, whoever they may be, and be in conflict with the power of the people. So they're going to be sent to restrain the people, simply put. Okay? But for the time being, not only is Rahu with Venus, and Venus is with the planet of let's all blend together and appreciate each other's differences, but Rahu is heading to the other sign that Mars is ruling, that is Aries, with Chiron. And so, unlike what we see from, immediate observation, like, oh, this is such a great lunation, the moon is exalted in Taurus, it's a new moon, it mitigates the opposition of Mars and Pluto, it conjuncts Algol. Yes, there can be many things, but it can also be tremendous healing from themes that we encountered in November 2021 and a new beginning there. All of this is true. And Jupiter ingresses into Taurus with applying to conjunct Rahu. Oh, what a lovely sight. Jupiter is squaring Pluto. And we're conjuncting Sedna, that we are only learning to work with. And this Mars is in a grand square. And is ruling both Ketu and Chiron. So we have a fated new beginning, fated by the merit of the square to the nodes from Mars, but also from Pluto. So Pluto is aspecting, is trining this lunation, but is also in a grand square. So we have a fated new beginning that involved cosmic alignment. And I began with science because that's the good news. We're going to learn a lot about the world. All the while, Aries is also triggered, and there lies not just Aries, the planet, Aries with an E, which conjuncts this Jupiter still. but also Chiron. So there's a stamp of whatever is going to happen of 50 years of not being able to fully process that. Okay. So any fated new beginnings connected with healing of traumas from military, from sexual stuff, from whatnot, they can actually be supported. It's just that we're not going to get to the bottom of it. It's like it takes 50 years for it to flourish, for it to grow, for it to have this breakthrough or this purging that people have it around age 50. This miraculous healing. It's like, oh my gosh, all these years I've been trying to do this, and now finally I get to heal this. Okay, this is Chiron in our chart. Um, so that says that whatever starts here, it's fated, and is also marked with the symbol of Chiron as the planet that takes 50 years to go around the zodiac. What is Chiron? Is the wounded healer. And what is being started? Mars is in 29 degrees of Cancer, so Mars is being very reflective. The Jupiter and Pluto are in the 0 degrees. 0 degrees where you just entered the place. Okay, you're a curious baby. You haven't been here for a while. You notice all the things. You look around. Maybe cautious, maybe excited, depending on your nature and the nature of the place that you're at, and how do they are in common. The 29th degree is where you know the place so much so that you already know. It's like, yeah, today they have this croissant at the cafeteria, and oh, yes, there's that employee that's going to play that song today in a couple of hours. And oh, they're going to fight. I know they're going to fight. Yeah, I know what's going to happen. Yeah, they're going to do this. Yeah, they're going to do that. So while Mars is in the point where Pluto was during the beginning of the Second World War, he is also very predictive to the future. And so this is not a weak Mars. It's in Cancer, so it's fallen, but it's in the 29th degree of Cancer. It is able to see into the future quite diligently. And this lunation is in favorable aspect with this Mars and Pluto, which gives it the power to mitigate it. So leadership has the power, and the people have, the nation have the power to have this enlightenment that mitigates, at least for the time being, this T square with Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto. So we are being supported. But this is what we need to remember. Okay. When we first look at these lunations, like, oh, the moon is exalted in Taurus, a grand new beginning, oh, suddenly a relief after the eclipses. Upon closer inspection, we're getting the situation. Remember when we had Jupiter in Pisces and there was the Saturn Uranus square? That's about it. It's like, yes, there's Saturn is squaring Uranus. And if you go through Saturn maturation or Saturn return, you're called to mature, grow up and rebel. We literally had to grow up and rebel. Or if you were rebellious all your life, then you suddenly, sober up. It's like travel because you're looking for yourself, and then COVID, and then you go into a BA. And this is a true story of people that I talked with. So those kind of cases, all the while Jupiter was in Pisces. Um, and that is also a situation. Okay, so here this lunation, yes, is a lot of good energy, but it's mitigating energy, and it's mitigating something that is quite intense, and that's the grand square. Aries with the E is still very much alive, very much applying to square Pluto again, very much applying to conjunct Jupiter, or Jupiter is separating from Aries, blah blah blah. But yeah, like, we're not done with Aries Pluto. you want to know more about Aries Pluto, Dan Waits did a great job with Aries Pluto. Even when they trine, it's troubles. So we're expected the Martian, the person who is marginalized in society, to have a maverick act. We saw that in Israel. There was a story amongst all the war and everything. There was a story about a soldier, woman soldier. She got released from the army. She's an ex-soldier. And throughout her life before the army, she suffered a lot. And the welfare was not useful. Then she went to the army. She actually flourished there. Some people died there. She flourished, so she had luck in the army. Then she finished her army service. And she tried to make a life for herself that didn't work. She tried to call for help that didn't work. She had CPTSD all along. She tried to kill herself, that didn't work. And eventually, there was no solution for her. So no solution for her. She asked her friend, if I dress up as a terrorist, okay, if I dress up as like an Arab or a Palestinian woman, I go there with a gun, with a fake gun, and I go into, I don't know, Jerusalem or so, and I say Allahu Akbar, which literally means God is great. But the context, huh? So, do they shoot me in the foot? Will I go to jail? Or will they just kill me? And he reported that to the police. He reported that to the armed forces. She went and did that. So they got they were supposed to have had a report, Mercury retrograde or not, they were supposed to have had a report that there's going to be this person dressed like a Palestinian woman who's going to come here with a fake gun, that she might try to act and say Allahu Akbar and say, like literally she said what she was going to do, and then she did it. Well, she was shot dead. Okay, so she managed to kill herself. But there was also a very brilliant act of, this is the kind of suicide that is also a murder because, but it is the type of event that will be in the news. It's very difficult if a person kills themselves to be on the news. For the most ways that people try to kill themselves, they don't report it, also because they are afraid that people are going to hear about this method and they're going to try it themselves. Okay, so it's not just to oppress the people, there is also a legitimate reason to not publish these cases. But that one we'll hear about in the news. Okay, so we had a genius that she was supposed to make inventions, she was supposed to advance science, she was supposed to have social movements, and instead at 26 years old she died because she chose life. Okay, this is, and I haven't looked, I don't have her chart, I didn't delineate, but I just hear this story and I'm like, Aries. And we are not done with this brilliant mavericks that make a point in a way that you will observe them. We're not done with that. And she still squares Pluto. Yes, it is in orb. Okay. So that's another thing in play. And here there is Humia, and I would need your wisdom because I don't know how to delineate Humia. We can look. Let's do a little bit of the research. So Humia astrology. Humia astrology. So, love of the natural world and fecundity of natural processes. Let's look at astrograph. Okay, Humia. Okay, creation goddess of islands of Hawaii, was the source of many gods and goddesses as well as the race of mankind. Okay, so she is considered a great creatress. Pele, Hiyaka, Namaka, Laka, and many others were her offspring. She had skill to do with childbirth. Children sprang from different parts of her body. So she's able to create life with all of her body. Okay, and she is in 29 degrees Libra now. So she's ruled by Venus now. She rules fertility and childbirth. She has the magic. She's got the magic stick. So from Macaulay tree, which would enable her to conjure up fish and other edibles. Oh, she does something else with the magic stick. Okay. Um, so she's basically hunting and associated with never failing food supply. And she is with Keto. That means that fertility, abundance, nourishment is with Keto. But she opposes Sedna. Or in conjunct Sedna. Or she in conjunct Sedna. Sorry, she in conjunct Sedna. So love of the natural world, natural processes, connection to nature, connection to source, natural charisma. Okay, so she has crossed Spica and she's with Keto. So where we could lean on Humea, now we can perhaps ask or petition for a protection from the keto related things, so preserving food, preserving fertility in these turbulent times. And we may turn to her magically. On a mundane level, the pivotal axis is actually going away from the promise of Humea into the type of creativity of Eris and the philosophy of the land, the material philosophy of Jupiter that ingresses into Taurus, squaring Pluto. So it's not just any Jupiter in Taurus. It's a Jupiter in Taurus that says hi to Pluto. It's like, oh, where have we been since Marxism? Oh, Marxism, how have you been? Oh, we're in 2023. Oh, look at the land. Oh, the governments, they don't let people grow food. Oh, but wait, who even has food? Oh my God. But we will say that the farmers are actually for the people now? So they're not sex trading employees? Well, some of them do, but some of them are actually giving us good advices on how to grow food. So, oh my God. So how do we do Marxism today? How have you been? Okay, that's the Jupiter that ingresses into Taurus. And that is the the times. Now, let's go back to our beautiful chart. And thank you for being with me. And let's get, now we talked about the mundane world. Yes, armed forces. Yes, conflicts about religion. Yes, marginalized society striking a chord. Okay, the forgotten children, Jupiter is also children. The forgotten children have a gun. Maybe it's a fake gun. Maybe it's a real gun. Okay, maybe they want to kill somebody. Maybe they're just trying to commit a suicide in the only way that's available for them in 2023. Okay, maybe they just want to be heard. Maybe they've given up everything. We don't know. And all the while that is happening, On a mundane level, we have the voices that call for accepting diversity, for indulging in diversity. Venus conjunct in Sirius, she's indulging in diversity. She's turned on by diversity. She likes to be in Sirius. She's not exalted. She's happy in Cancer. She's happy in Cancer. Nourishment and sensuality, voila. Nourishment and art, get yes. To the artist well nourished. Oh my God, yes, yes, more of that. But what Mars is doing is opposing Pluto. So Mars is trying to get a strategy, and he's very predictive about what is going to be, but it's also Pluto that is the opposite point from where it's at. So it's like it can predict using the world wars, but we're actually at the French Revolution and we need to customize that to 2023, and we're going to have another revolution which we can't predict the technology. So it's like from the vantage point of where I am, which is, you know, the motherland meets the solar, the Regulian figure that rule it, I find it very difficult to gather up a strategy, even though I am predictive. That's Mars in 29th degree, the anaretic degree, opposing Pluto. What about the personal stuff? You might be wondering, is it all mundane? No, it's also personal. So, from, you know, just looking at this chart, so people would say, well, you know, for relations, well, you do have Mars opposing Pluto, so that might not be the best time to start a new romantic relationship. And that's true. You may have people like Astro Victor that say, well, maybe we can tackle this. Maybe we can find how do we accept the invitation to transform our view of Mars. Well, that's also true. Do you want to F with that? We don't know. It's quite experimental. That being said, where Venus and the Moon are is very much supportive of sensuality meets nourishment. So we have this a bit of dissonance, and the new beginning that is here with Mars and Pluto, and Pluto also squaring still squaring Mercury direct. There's something fated. So if it's in the books, then you need to do your magic for it to work and for you to, you know, alleviate what you need to alleviate and take the opportunities you need to take. If it's any new beginning you start right now, if it's not in the books for you, don't put it in there. You got Chiron with the signature of 50 years of wounding around the beginning of something new. That's Chiron in Aries. Okay, it's not now. Of course, a lot of us are going to have to find some election to begin something new, and of course, it has to do with Mars and Drive. Of course, it has to do with Aries. We're gonna have to do it some. If you can find a better election, good. If it's in the books for you, if it's triggered by eclipses, ascendant Sun, Moon on the axis of, you know, Taurus, on the axis of Aries, significant placements around Sirius, significant placements around Ketu. I have all of them. I have all of them. Okay, I'm ascendant Pisces, but I have the ruler of my 7th and 4th with Aries now, and Venus in 4 degrees next to Rahu, and the Sun in the middle decan of Taurus, and the lot of spirit in 22 degrees Taurus, and Chiron degree Gemini. So, and my moon, which is in my 5th house, is now has been imbued with the Mars eclipse, and now Venus is about to meet it. So for me, whatever comes, I'm like, okay, I'll just do whatever I can to make the best out of it. But for you, if it's not in the books, you don't have to put it in there. The sky is not as simple as you may expect or may predict. So, like I said in my previous video, let's say you're dating a person, and yeah, this person is, like they're a 10, but they just got out of an abusive relationship. You've never been in an abusive relationship. It doesn't mean that it can't work, but it does mean that they're carrying this, your connection is now carrying the stamp of Chiron that is of starting something new. It's going to be relevant for the next 50 years, 50. If it's not in the books, don't put it in there. Not because they have been through so and so and so. Because if it's not there for you in the books, the sky is quite complicated. I'm not saying completely. I'm not saying completely don't do it. Maybe you have reasoning to do that, and it's not fated for you, but it's fated for the other person, and you volitionally choose that, and that's okay. I'm not saying this is not going to ever work, but I am saying be aware that the situation is intricate, that the sky is intricate, and this is just like in this the previous take. I gave this example. Let's say you're starting to learn algebra, okay, and you can ask yourself, am I starting to learn the level of algebra that is equations with x and y? I'm expecting a certain process. Or am I attempting to compute the chaotic system for when I basically delineate a fracture of the line that is the closest to the description of the curve of the chaotic dynamic non-linear system, and try to computate a couple of these points and make a statistical analysis on them. Of course, I'm expected to more labor. Okay, so with these guys, what you're getting at is quantum chaos computed. Should I even? Do I even? How do I approach it? What is it applicable to in day to day? And so on and so forth. It's not X and YG algebra stuff. Okay? And if it's a relationship, Esther Perel is not going to save your ass. The astrologer of today is not going to save your ass. The psychologist, the psychiatrist today is not going to save your ass because you are creating the new teaching about relationships. Okay, that's Chiron. It's the wounded healer. For me, it's about relationships and money and housing. I don't know what am I gonna do, but but hey, I can tend to science. Like literally, I find relief in the analogy of energy and matter and this and that. And it's like this is my retreat. Okay, this is my retreat. Um, So, like I said, if it's not in the books, don't put it in there. It's like, it's not rocket science, but we are making rockets today. That's the heavens. So, should I go the 12 ascendants? Whoa, why the heck not? Let's begin with the ascendant here. So, ascendant Libra. Ascendant Libra, this is happening in your um, 8th house. So, your 8th house can be the energies that you have in another person. Uh, it can be birth as well. So maybe I guess you're having a baby, and it can be the birthing of a new philosophy, new religion in your life, or if you are doing a certain birthing of a project. Okay, Venus here is in your 10th house, so some birthing of some new career. Can also be, you can get a promotion. Okay, but it requires you to tend less to yourself and more to your path. So there's a bit of a less focus on you, your body, but more on that which is on you being a vessel, and that puts you in a position of superiority in the situation. Okay. All the while, your partner could be at odds with the entire thing or feel disempowered because the partner is ruled by Mars. Ascendant Scorpio. for you, if all in all your, it's happening in the seventh house, if all in all your partnerships are good, now is the time, and it has been this way for a while, now is the time to let your partner lead a little. Because by now they know what they're doing, okay? And sometimes they don't know what they're doing, but they still need to get this chance to learn how to lead, okay, if it's in a relationship. This is a time for you to give in to your partner. All the while, and your partner in this lunation can help mitigate the challenges that you experience in your body and to your life path. Your partner now may have a teaching, even or come from a different field, they may have a teaching. Okay, and they may affect you positively and they can mitigate something positively. So this is a time where you have a crisis in life, but you might, depending on your chart, might be able to feel the warm embrace of someone dear. And it can be romantic, it can also be a partnership in business. Okay, it can also mean that your situation, you have a life crisis, but your business partner actually saves the day. And there is, how should I say it? If I'm going to be cliches, there is can be, and you're ruled by the Taurus archetype. The seventh house is like, fuck bros before hoes and hoes before bros. Give me some Taurian camaraderie. The Taurian archetypes are known to be the type of person that you could be Hitler, but they will still behave respectfully to you as at least with the parts in their chart that are of this archetype. Okay, other parts do other things. But this is a sign that is very, 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 very loyal. It's fixed values. If it has the value of camaraderie, it's going to stick to this value through no matter what. It's going to defend itself by any means necessary. Yes, it comes from a position of power. Taurus is the sign of peace, not because it doesn't know how to fight, but because it comes from a position of power. It's like, yeah, I'm learning all these things, but I'm learning all these things so that I won't have to use them. Okay? And it's not even a threat. And it's not a promise either. It's like, hey, there is peace. Let's explore that. Let's focus on peace. Why don't we wanna relax and enjoy life? Or work hard at something we're actually passionate about? So, enemies, um, that depends on the person, but Taurian enemies are based their ability to connect with the sensuality and for that to be promised and granted. Okay, so we can lead a Taurus on how do you meet, satisfy your sensual needs in a way that is actually nourishing for you. Okay, obviously, if I'm not happy, obviously your dingo is not. You don't need, you don't need to even say that. The Taurians know that they're connected to self-pleasure, depending on the archetype. So even if that is an enemy, okay, when it's very easy to, even though it's fixed sign, it's very easy to pivot the equation into, yes, you can have peace. Yes, you can have your sensual pleasure. Yes, you can have your security independently of me. So they will go through a crisis because you are the crisis for them. But they will grow out of it and they will become a better person and they will think of you and be thankful to you, to what you bring. Ascendant Sagittarius. So this lunation, this new moon is happening in your sixth house. So sixth house, there's fated new beginning to do with your health, to do with your, it can be something with your pet. It is also because it's labor and service to the world, it can also be birth giving. So it can be, or getting pregnant. It's also an opportunity that you have. Jupiter is in this sign, so things are going to be magnified to a resolution. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have good health with Jupiter and Taurus. It can also mean that if you have the sweet tooth, it's going to be accentuated so much so that now you need to tend to that, but you're also going to find a solution. And attention goes a long way here. There's service to the world. Rahu is there. That means your physical health. You understand the implications of what you've been doing in the 12th house. Were you taking your time for yourself? Were you tending to your mental health? Were you tending to the non-physical? Okay, and how that affects your body, because now you're collecting the results. Now, how is my body? If you have a body issue, this very likely stems from something that you are now purging in the non-physical realm. And now, because you're purging something in the non-physical realm, it can express itself as, now I notice that I have this, I'm coughing lately. Oh, there are so many things I still have to say. Oh my gosh, I will speak up. And that's your teaching. Okay, so Venus in the ninth house. I will speak up. This is going to be my teaching. And then I will speak up, and then the lump in my throat is going to improve. Because now I'm saying the right words for me. Ascendant Capricorn. This lunation happens in your fifth house, so that can be children, that can be leisure time, that can be what you do for fun. With Venus in your seventh house. Okay. You could be one of the signs, depending on your placements, for whom it is in the books to start a certain romance that turns into marriage. Do understand that Aries is with Chiron in the fourth. Okay, so the house that you are building together will have something that this beginning will have a marking of 50 years that you addressed as something. Maybe you are wounded healer of family issues or generational healing or ancestral healing. Okay, those are the good things that you can do with that. It just means that it's very likely that you're going to have a fated romance that becomes serious, because the ruler of the fifth is now in the seventh in this lunation, and everything is with the nodes. And the ruler of your chart is trining this ruler of the lunation from the fifth to the seventh. And this is coming from your third. Okay, so there's longevity here. That being said, everything that I mentioned concerning the challenges that exist with this, they're still there. So my best guess is that for you, it's in the books. And if it's in the books, then you notice some more fatigue, but also you're the type of person to get into tending to the astrological forces or the things that are ruled by these forces. So Chiron rules alternative healing of the type that you generate. And this is in your fourth house. Okay, time to go ancestral. Pluto, what are you composting in your life? And this is your second house of income and expenses and value. So how do you compost into a being that values themselves? How do you spend your money? How do you make your money? Probably you're going to be doing something creative with this aspect. So ruler of your first and second is in your third, so you're going to be tending to this new thing. Your life impact is going to be a daily practice. If you start a romantic relationship or even a marriage, romantic relationship will turn into a marriage. There will be longevity. You will tend to this. With Saturn in the third, you're going to tend to this relationship on a daily basis. This is some duty that you're going to carry out in this connection. Now, how do you allow for duty to be and not overwhelm sensuality? Sensuality is very supported here. What's not supported is the drive, the assertion. You may have learned all types of models for asserting your emotional well-being that are outdated. Okay, so you may have done all the training, but now the training for how to communicate, how to set boundaries with my partner, how to this, how to that, they're being outdated. And you have to do a chironic work to bring in the new. because Pluto was in your first house, now it's getting to your second house, it's going to retrograde a bit to your first house, your body is going to be impacted by that, and there is more regeneration going on. So I don't know exactly what, we're going to feel it in your body. You could also get pregnant. Okay, with Pluto, that is birthing, you could also get pregnant with this partner. Ascendant Aquarius. So the lunation is happening in your fourth house, with the ruler in the sixth. You could either be working from home, or you're adapting the housing to a new pet, okay, or the health condition of somebody at home can be improved by a pet, or you're tending to a pet. And for you, there is something fated is about to happen. That can as well be a child is born in the family, not necessarily your child. Okay, that can also be a point of conflict, but I didn't mean it in a drama way, although that can be the case. I meant it actually in a, especially with the Sedna. Okay, so your unconditional love to children may be tested. Maybe you wanted to bring a child to life for very, very long, and you bring a child, it's only a child, yeah, biologically, but it is a child, and you wanted a child. So that can also be the case, right? So Sedna can bring those situations. But it can also be your child, and now you're dealing with the actual reality of either you being a parent or somebody in your family. Okay, so don't your child as in somebody in your family brings a child, and now that requires tending to the and being of service. It can also mean that somebody in your family is working with you around your health, because your moon, the ruler of your sixth, is in the fourth. So somebody is helping you. Maybe you gave birth and now you're having the family coming over to help you to take care of the child. That can also be the case. Or if it's pet related, it can also be a pet that you're getting help to treat or something like that. Ascendant Pisces. The lunation is in your third house. For you, you are applying, you're putting, you're applying hands-on experience. You've had your time of theorizing. Now you're materializing your skill. Okay, second house, building a skill. Ninth house is worldview. Third house is skill applied. And what is skill applied is the conjoining of the worldview, the theories, what you studied in your ninth house, and the inconjunct to the second, the skill. Okay? So think about, you study engineering in academia, or you study whatever. Now you're going to work. It's nothing like you can put all the books aside. Okay, when I was doing filmmaking in high school, and I knew that I was dealing with that. I don't know why, but I was dealing with that very good. I wrote a screenplay. I wrote 5 screenplays until I got approved because it had to be producible, and I had to learn that. Okay, this is my fantasy, and then there is what I can film and shoot with the budget that I have, with the knowledge and the skills and the team that I have. And then from the screenplay, you translate it into pictures. So words into pictures. And from those pictures, you go to the set. And I knew, even before I got to the set, I had this knowing. I'm going to take everything that I wrote, and I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to look at the set and work with what I have together, what I don't. Okay, that was my motto when I was in high school. I was making my first student film. And so the relation between the ninth, that is my philosophy, what I think should be, what I've learned, and the set, which is the third, goes through the second, which is applying skill. I put my theories to praxis, and then I can create something in the third. Okay, You learn the alphabet. Okay, now you want to write a book. It's not enough to learn the alphabet. And the third is something that you do every day. So you continue in your mastery of skill, but this is hands-on applied experience that builds something that is maintained every day. Third house is also the bathtub. So it can be decorating the bathtub, having a salt bath routine, okay, cleansing baths. Now you're gonna have to apply your skill. You say, I'm gonna have a house, it's gonna have a jacuzzi, I'm gonna take showers every day. Now you have this house, you take 1, 2, 3 showers in the jacuzzi, and I'm like, okay, I need to spice it up more. What do I do now? It can be as simple. I'm not even talking about sensuality here, I'm talking even detox. What do I do now? Oh, I thought that I'm going to shower with apple cider vinegar. It's gonna be great. I'm like, yeah, but I'm kind of tired of that. Or, yeah, I know that this is what I should do, but I kind of feel like doing something else with Uranus. What else can I put into this experience in my daily routine that's going to improve? Because I get all my good ideas when I'm swimming or when I'm in the bathtub or when I'm in the shower. Okay, what if I recorded a song when I'm singing in the shower? And they're like, that's a great idea. Okay, we're gonna need my GoPro, but I don't want to have film, but I don't want to expose my equipment to humidity. So hey, I'm gonna need a lot more budget than I thought I have. So I'm just putting a cell phone there. Um, how am I going to amplify my voice over the water because I want to have the water and I want this effect and I just want to have a song recorded when I'm singing in the shower. Now you have to apply it. How do you do that? On set. So now you have a fated new beginning. You probably are starting something or a demo or something creative. Um, and that requires for certain creativity because Uranus is not going to let you do the same old thing every day. And this is the third house where you're expected to maintain something routinely. Okay, if you've been ascendant Pisces, I'm ascendant Pisces, my heart is with you. I have not had a daily routine in a while, which is very liberating. But this liberation can also be constricted to certain opportunities that are being blocked by Uranus because Uranus is going to allow to do the things that I want to do that are good for my path. But it's just going to storm away everything that's not it. It's just going to storm it away from life. Ascendant Aries. So this donation happened in your second house of income, expenses, skills, values, and self-value. Now with Chiron in the house, in your first house, um, and Mars in your fourth, and Venus in your fourth, okay, so the ruler of the second and the fourth, you're being called to reflect both upon death, because house of death, it's both the house that you are living in and a grave. So you're being called to reflect upon death and the end of life, as well as the family of origin, relationships with the parents, both the father and the mother, especially with this new lunation, the values that were instilled in you in the family, the values of what kind of home am I building. You can get the chance to make love at home. You can get the chance to decorate the home. You can get the chance to even do maybe a bit of feng shui. So now you're getting the chance to do all that. That being said, there is a Chironic element to addressing this, but the merit of Mars ruling your first with Chiron in your first. So something what begins now for you, if it's a business or an entrepreneurship, if you're like me and you're born in between eclipses, that may be in the books for you. So you go with the flow and then you mitigate, you eliminate, you work with the energies, you petition the eclipse energies, maybe petition an eclipse, like do something creative, do something new, try something that maybe is unusual and might get you to a new place. Mm, 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 mm. Jupiter is entering the second house, squaring Pluto. So, composting of the way that you make money and the way that you spend money and your worldview around material things and sensuality. What is the connection between sensuality and wealth? Okay, you may have revelations, changing conflicts, issues, dissonances that you deal with in this case. Ascendant Taurus, finally we are here with you. So, Ascendant Taurus, you are experiencing actually a path, life path. It's not as big, but it's also not as tiny. It's not just a new moon, but it's not an eclipse, but it's the continuation of an eclipse, but it's the triggering of a previous eclipse. So your life path is going through a certain transformation for a while now. Your body is changing as well. The ruler of this lunation is in your third house. So that's going to affect the neighborhood that you're living in, your daily routine, your relations with siblings. Okay. And this can be the neighbors, and this can be siblings, and this can be certain routines that you need to do following this changing of life path. It's going to be unpredictable by the merit of Uranus still at play. Um, it is going to be incredibly fated, and there's a bit of the promised land illusion and disillusionment effect here because Neptune is sextiling this lunation. I didn't speak about Neptune at all. But yeah, and Mars is trining this Neptune. So the missing link, huh? And so something that was missing in your life is now at play with your life path. Or something that was spiritual, something that was hidden from your eye. Um, Neptune here is in your 11th, so it can range anywhere from the missing link that is finally being discovered to dealing with the physical impacts of devaluation, idealization, savior complex, and so on and so forth, but or addictions of some kind. And now you have the opportunity. Neptune, I see here, is oppositioning Ceres. Um, if it's something to do with children, okay, maybe you have a chance to advocate for yourself using the neighbors or using siblings or having a new fated beginning there. Chiron is in your 12th house, and so there's something to tend to still regarding the non-physical aspect of your body that affects your life path. With Aries, tend to your head, um, your intellect. Okay, there's also chance for healing in this respect. It's not just, you know, you can suddenly somebody appreciates your intellect and you're like, oh, wow, that's so good. That's and a physical symptom is being alleviated. Yeah, it can be something as simple as that. Ascendant Gemini. So this new beginning is in your 12th house. Now you're called to volitionally retreat. And there's a lot of unclarity because it's what you didn't know that you didn't know. So you can do 12 house donations. Guess from Ladders and Sheva, 12 house donations. Taurian people, think about musicians, think about artists. Um, think about with this goal like the people who had Medusa like experiences, so um, can range anywhere from survival of violation of sexual boundaries to sex workers that deal with susceptibility to stigma and on the one hand and coercion on the other hand. Um, so you can make donations to these people. Okay, honor these people. that can help you both view and alleviate certain things that overwhelm you. Now, Uranus in your 12th house is not easy. Uranus in your 12th house is making a revolution to this aspect of you that is not tangible. So you're going through a revolution, but you're not even aware of this. So be easy on you. Mercury, the ruler of your first, is in the 12th, so you might be feeling depleted. Um, if you have Sun in Gemini, then you're about to have a solar return at this time and heading towards the solar return. So you can feel more tired, more depleted. The Sun is in the 12th position from the original place if this is a solar return for you. And in any case, it's the Sun in your 12th house if it's the ascendant. And that is a time where you need your beauty sleep or your beauty retreat in order to shine again. Ascendant Cancer. So 11th house, dreams, goals, investments that have to do with crowdfunding, conferences, your voice in the world, your agenda, your activism is being heightened. And the conference room comes to your first house. So you could have a Zoom meeting where you are lecturing or giving a conference, or you can have a Zoom meeting with your investors, maybe female investors, crowdfunding. Now and this is more like the 11th house is coming to you. Certain colleagues, they are coming to you, they are approaching you. All the while your moon is in the 11th. So you go to a conference and somebody approaches you. That can range from a romantic experience because it's ruled by Venus, to a partnership, to a nice conversation, to a creative project together, to being appreciated at work. Okay, you just show up, and by the merit of your being, somebody approaches you, and you just initiate with each other. It's this reception between the moon and Venus, so you're just initiating with each other, and it can be something very beautiful. Just that there is this Mars thing from your 10th house affecting your physical health as well. So, like, ascendant Cancer, you have been dealing with Mars in your first house, related with eclipses. This was gate to composting your own experience of the bloodstream. If you have a penis, then the penis, menstrual cycle. Okay, you could have certain symptoms alleviated, actually composted, alleviated by healing something to do with your sensuality and your womb. And because Mars is ruling Aries, so it's also ruling the head. Okay, so your head has been more sensitive. Can be headaches and migraines, but it can also be the alleviation of those. Connection between your lymphatic fluids and cell regeneration with Pluto here in the head, nervous system. So the water and the blood-brain barrier. Maybe you've been taking your vitamins and then you're like, oh, I've been taking my vitamins, this doesn't work. Well, you've been taking GABA. GABA is not being filtered in by blood-brain barriers. You're going to have to find a way to induce GABA naturally, so that what you're taking is actually inducing the natural GABA that you have in you, rather than trying to just consume GABA, because it's not going to go cross through the blood-brain barrier. Could be that applies exactly directly to you. Now you get that, you try that, you alter it if you think, or you look at it from a holistic point of view. And holistic point of view does not mean that you are to blame for your ailments. There's probably a good reason that you're thinking the way you're thinking and you're acting the way you're acting. That, and it can be that through the physical you can alter something. It can be that through examining your beliefs you can tend to, whether managing the condition that you deal with in your body, or your athletic regime in a different way. Yeah, so for me, I was in the 5th house, but when Mars was in Cancer, I walked in water. I was very angry, then I would walk in water, and then I would get fit, get physical, and I would integrate the water element, and that contributed to being more athletic and also to regulating my emotions. Yeah, and still express my anger, but also be mitigated by the conjoining of Mars, athletics, and water. So this is the case for you. Ascendant Leo. Taurus is in your 10th house. Venus is in your 12th. So you can have a bit of a glitch. A Freudian slip gets you into a loss of career position isn't the worst case scenario. Another case that your career, you go to your career and it brings you to retreat. Okay? In the best of cases, you are in a bit of evolutional exile due to moving to a new country, to a new isolated place, and let's say broadcasting from there, having a show from there. Or maybe you're one of the people that move into you have moved to live in a cabin by the lake, and now you're the cabin cottage girl on YouTube, but you're also quite isolated and lonely, but you're also advancing your career, and your career causes you to be isolated and lonely, and you're isolated and lonely, but it kind of gives you the spiritual advantages that boost your career, okay? And your worldview is kind of hampered, Chiron, by this new beginning, because it's like I thought I'm going to be this cottage girl by the lake, and I see that I'm very lonely. But then, how do I deal with that? How do I move on? So it can be one of the situations. Your career brings you to isolation, volitional, non-volitional, preconsidered, not preconsidered, something that can be because you are ruled by the sun. It's very likely that it's in the books for you. It's fated. So what you're gonna have to do is say, okay, this is the situation. How do I improve upon this now? What do I take from that? Ascendant Virgo. This is the last but not least, Ascendant Virgo. And thank you so much for being with me for all that while. So Ascendant Virgo, the ruler of your ascendant is basically in Taurus, and this happens all in your ninth house. So Taurus is your ninth house. It's a new beginning with Venus in your 11th. So maybe you're starting to actually be lecturing in an academic institution or a quasi-academic institution. Now many places call themselves academy. There's the academy of everything. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, there's decentralization of the academy. It's not a bad thing at all. So it can be that now you're actually starting to teach because the ruler of the ninth is in the 11th. So you're making a contribution to society. Or you're having an apprenticeship. Or you're having the type of thesis or PhD or dissertation that requires you to do activism, or maybe having a thesis about activism, crowdfunding, dreams and goals. Here is it. I know a person who is beginning to have registered to a degree, and their dissertation is going to be about activists in a certain field. And so this ties in the ninth with the 11th. And so the ruler is, you are in the ninth. You are beginning something new here. Perhaps now it's time to apply. Maybe you've given a thesis proposal. Now it's been approved. Now you have to start writing. And that affects your 8th house. Perhaps now you're going to have to be worried about grants. How are you going to fund this study? Because it's connecting the 11th and the ninth, there are all the conflicts of interests. Okay, so there's a lot of issues with conflict of interest that you're going to have to find your way, and you're going to have to decide, how am I going to bring into fruition this dissertation, or if it's a religious teaching or spiritual teaching, How am I going to tackle the conflicts of interest involved in me pursuing um, what I came here to do? Another thing that can happen in this situation, because it's Venus, or relationship, romantic relationship, if it is, again, if it is happening for you, if it's in alignment with your chart, then you can meet a partner that you're being activist with, or you go to the academia and then you have a group of activism, and then you met someone from the academia at the group of activism, and you're starting something together. And if you have these natal placements of Venus being in the ninth, or the ruler of the ninth with Venus, that can be actually something that's meant to be. And then you'll have to remediate that. It's nothing is perfect. You're going to have to do your tending to it and innovating into it. Innovating. What Chiron is it's calling us to, in Aries, it's calling us to innovate through. Chiron in itself is innovation simply because it's the wounded healer and it has to find a new way to heal itself. And so it's actually matching Aries, which is something new. But then there is the wound about beginning something new. So the problems of being innovator and healing the entrepreneur, and an entrepreneurial healing. This was the final ascendant, and I hope this was useful. I hope you enjoyed the introduction. I always like to have this rich introduction. That's what got me into astrology to begin with, was the introduction to these forecasts. And so I invest in those as well, since that's, giving back to the community. And I hope you like this. You feel free to subscribe to me. I do have a Patreon. My email is made to love magic1@gmail.com, and I do have a PayPal, so there's a possibility to feed me. I will still need to see how do I run the whole bureaucracy of that. But there's a possibility to go to contribute to me, where you know that this is my email, rather than to go through Patreon or another, bridging person. What I'll need to figure out is how do I get, like, how do I accept this payment in terms of taxes and whatever my thing is. But if you're interested, this is my email. This is your possibility to uh, make a donation or something like that, or make transferring of your wealth. If you're interested, it would be of good use for me to first pay dividends and buy courses of my colleagues that have been contributing to my wealth of knowledge so much, that I've been able to make money out of astrology when I was giving readings. So I'd really love to pay dividends. I really love to buy their courses to support their works. They're giving me the ability to support myself and to experiment more and to allocate the time to do what I'm doing right now without being hampered by what am I going to eat tomorrow, or where am I going to sleep tomorrow, or how am I going to defend my body, and so on and so forth. So that's how it is of help. And if you're doing planetary charity, I have Ascendant Pisces, Sun and Venus in Taurus, Moon in Cancer, Stellium in Scorpio. So those are significant, Mercury in Aries. Those are significant charities that you can integrate. So you can integrate my work, and I'm doing astrology, so this is Uranus as well. Um, that if you're seeking to do planetary charity and integrate that into your charity, so you gain from that too, then that's even more desired. So yes, I'll see you in my next video. And I finally managed to record this decent video about the full moon in Taurus with the 12 ascendants. Very proud of me. And good night. Bye bye.